friends, it's Sandy with Sandy Cogdill Designs, and welcome to the Pajama Crafters YouTube channel. I am new to the Pajama Crafters design team, and I'm so excited to be here. Today I'm creating a card with the new Adventure Awaits stamp set. This card is created with some of the same techniques that are similar to shaker cards, but we won't be using these shaker embellishments, but it will definitely be dimensional. I hope you will follow along with me. Let's get started.
Okay, we are going to do a pretty simple card. It's some pretty simple coloring, not a lot of pieces to it, but I think it's going to be really impactful. At least I hope it is. We're using the Adventure Awaits stamps, of course. I'm going to be using the little pirate ship and a couple of the sentiments that come with the stamp set. I don't know if you could see that with the glare, but hopefully you can. Let me turn on another light. Maybe it might make it worse. Might make it better. A little bit better. Well, more glare. All right, enough of that. Let's get started. I have got some patterned paper that I have had in my growing pattern paper stash, and I'm going to be using this die cut to cut out the front of this card, and it's kind of like a little frame. I'm going to have two little windows, and the lucky thing about this particular paper is I am going to be able to use both sides on the same card, which is pretty rare. So I'm going to run this through my die cutter. Give me just a second here. And I've got my pieces. Get you out of there. Come on. Any other day this would pop right out. Not today though. Alrighty. Get out the big guns. Pick it out. Pick out our paper. Really? Come on. Stop it. There we go. All right. Now, I'm going to use the lighthouse side on the inside, and then I want to use another piece of pattern paper for this bottom window, but I don't want to use the whole piece of paper. Like I said, I'm a huge paper hoarder, so I am just going to run this part through my die cut machine, and then I still have a whole bunch of that paper left for other projects, or to hold on to for 1,000 years. Perfect, and that piece is just going to go right in there. I think that's going to look really good. Now, this is going to be a dimensional card. It's not going to be a shaker card, but I'm going to make it very similar to when I do make a shaker card. It's not going to have any acetate. It's just going to have dimension. So I'm going to start with a piece of cardstock that is 5.5 by 4.25. And I have used that die to cut out, let's see how many I have here. 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. And these are going to create like the dimension for my card. So I have used 110-pound paper. And that gives me just enough depth. Now I could get the same effect using foam tape, but I think this is a much cleaner finish. It's got a nice clean edge to it, both inside and outside. And you don't have a bunch of paper that's not well supported. That's kind of one of my pet peeves. So I'm going to start by putting just one of these down on my cardstock. I'm just going to center that in here. That looks pretty good. Don't want that. All right. Now I'm going to take the lighthouse piece and put that in there. I love my glue press. This is, Sweet Petunia just came out with one of the best tools. It's one of my favorite tools, along with my little pokey stick. All right, I'm gonna get that put in there. Now, I've got my ship. I've already got it cut out. And what I want to do is I'm gonna actually make that pop up a little bit too, just to add just a little bit more dimension to this card. So before I color it, I'm going to figure out where it's going to go. And I want to use a pen and draw a line here. And I'm just going to clip that off with some scissors here. You probably can't see that on the camera, but I just want a nice straight edge on that. All right, I'm going to set that aside for now because we're going to have to color it, and it's going to go in there at a certain point. We can also glue in, I'm not sure. I feel like this would need to pop up maybe just a little bit and not be as deep. So I'm going to take a couple of the voids that were cut out when I used this and just stick them in there. It's all about the dimension. All right, we're going to add another one of these on. Like I said, I do most of my shakers this way if I can, just because I just like the finish on it. And if I was going to get really, really obsessive, I would be coloring in the inside and the outside of this frame so that it matched my pattern paper. But we're not going to go too, I'm not going to be, well, too crazy today. I'll try not to be anyway. All right, I think I want one more in there to pop that up. All right. All right, I've got a couple more of these to pop on there. Pretty. I don't want to get this too thick either. I have done that before. I'm kind of a more is more girl, so I have to really try to monitor myself as I'm going. Just because I have it doesn't mean I need to use it. So I think this will be the last layer, and I think it will give me a little bit of dimension, but it's not going to be too much or too crazy. It's just going to be there. I think that'll work. Yeah, and that'll work fine. I don't need anything else. All right, now I'm going to take the pattern paper and I'm going to put it right on top of that. Like I said, it's pretty rare that I am able to use one piece of pattern paper like this. I usually like 2 different kinds of, then I'm cutting into it, and then I get all kinds of anxiety. Sorry. It's my saga of pattern paper. All right, I think that's looking really, really good. All right. This guy is gonna go in here once we get it colored. Nice. Okay. Now, this is a very, very quick coloring project. And when I get started coloring, I often use the pattern paper as what I'm going to select my colors are. So I've got a number of Copic markers here, and they're all in the, I guess it's toner gray, which I don't use this color very much because it's kind of an odd gray, but it works perfectly for this card. So I'm going to start with the T0, and I am going to cover up everything that's white on here, like the outside edge around where it was cut out, inside where the sails are. I am going to leave my little skeleton white because he's a skeleton and he needs to stay white. But we're going to go all the way around this. And that's why I'm doing that, is it's just going to cut down on the harshness of the white. There's really not a lot of white in that pattern paper. And I don't want this to stand out, the outside of this to stand out, if that makes any sense at all. So I'm just going to go around real quick, go in all those areas where there isn't a sail. Well, that would be a sail right there because it's into the boat, so we'll leave that one alone. And here, I like this because I like quick coloring projects, and that's why I like this stamp set so much. There's a ton of detail on it, which really helps the coloring, especially if you don't feel real confident in your coloring. I've been coloring for a long time, and I still would not consider myself a colorist, that's for sure. All right, that was T1. Now I am going to go in with, that was T0. Now I'm going to go in with the T1, and I'm just going to flick some color at the top and at the bottom of those sails. So I'm just giving them just the teeniest bit of dimension, but I'm not covering the whole sail. I want some of the white to show, to kind of create that billowy effect, like it's blowing in the ocean. I think I missed this part with my T0. I'll go back in here and get that. It looks weird. All right, now I'm going to use a little bit of T2. And again, I'm just flicking up a teeny bit of color on those edges of the sail, the top and the bottom, not so much the sides. And I'm kind of just following, if you notice there's some little curvy lines here. And so when I'm flicking my color up, I'm just kind of following that line. I don't know about you, but I always find coloring really, really relaxing. Sometimes I'll work on a card that's just like a ton of coloring and a ton of different colors, and I'm so relaxed by the end of the day. It should almost be illegal. All right. Again, you're not seeing a whole bunch of color here, and that's fine because I don't want a whole bunch of color. I am gonna color in my water down here. We're not making it blue. We're keeping everything in these gray tones. And then I'm taking my darkest, my T3, and again, I'm doing even smaller flicks at the bottom and the top of those sails, just to give them a wee bit more dimension. It's really pretty. And I can follow these little lines with my darker color. Kind of give it a little bit more dimension. I forgot this little flag up here. Oh, and my water, which I'm not doing a whole lot there. I'm just kind of keeping it dark underneath where the ship is. It's not a boat, it's a ship. I'll call that good. All right, now let's do the hull. And again, I've matched my colors based on the pattern paper. So once this kind of settles into the paper, it's going to be very similar to this rust color right here. I'm going to start with EO8. And I'm going to just carefully lay in my color. Now when I use Copic markers, I don't know if this is just laziness, it just helps me with my coloring and my blending. I always put my lightest color in over the whole area that I'm coloring. I always feel like that wets my paper just enough. So when I go to blend my darker shades, then it just flows a lot better for me. So I'm gonna get all of those, and then I'm going to take the very tippy tip of my brush and I'm just going to follow these lines a little bit. There we go. Not being super careful. I'm just putting color in. And we got a little pole here and here. A pole here, a pole here. That looks good. I think I will follow the line of this railing here, just to get a little bit more of this rusty color in. Perfect. I think that's enough. Now I'm going to do just a tiny bit of shading, and I'm using the EO9. Just flicking it in there. Again, this is no crazy coloring. This is just laying in color. Doesn't even have to be exact, because the stamp with all the details is doing all of the work for you. It's creating all of those dimensions, and it's helping you. It gives you an idea of how to flick those colors in. And that's it. Super duper simple. All right, now, like I said, I do want to pop him up. Can you imagine we're already done coloring? I do want to pop him up. I think he looks just flat like that. So thin. I'm just using a 1mm foam tape. Just because that's actually my new favorite. depth. I think 2 gets too much, but it works good for shaker cards. Let's just do a little. Do your scissors ever get so sticky from cutting adhesive and tape that you can't hardly stand them? You can't get them to open or shut. I have found, I don't know if I have any on my desk. I got these off of Amazon. They're adhesive remover pads. I think they actually use them in the hospital. It's acetone free. And I will use those to clean up my blades on my scissors, because as you can tell, this one definitely needs some work. But we're not going to do that right now. So let's see, we're going to cut that here. Oops, a little too long. If we're going to trim it, we may as well move it over. Ugh. Put that there. This here. Close. And that little piece we're going to just stick right here. Give that pole a little bit of support. Cut another piece right here. I don't like to tear my foam. I know some people do. It just makes a horrible mess. All right. Just trim that off a wee bit, and then we've got something for this post. A little bit of support. Show? Nope. Perfect. I'm just going to do another small piece here. And yeah, that's a skinny. That's skinny or thin. All right. There's a little piece here. All right. Now, see how that popped that up? And it gave it just enough dimension. It's giving it just enough dimension that it's a nice 3D effect. I can see my pencil line here and it's bugging me. All right. Let's put this on and get my bowl. I always have a little bowl on my work surface to throw these pieces of paper in. That way they're not all over the floor, although my floor does get really, really bad. But my son has a dog that comes over that I watch occasionally, and he will eat anything and everything off the floor. It doesn't matter what it is. So I try to keep my floor as clear as possible. All right. Now, one more little thing I do with my adhesive my foam tape is I also add liquid glue. And I'm not doing that so that it sticks better. Well, I kind of am because my dry climate and adhesives don't play well together sometimes. But this also gives me a little bit of a barrier so that I can kind of fiddle around with it, move it around before it becomes too permanent. So I'm going to line it up there at the bottom of that window. And perfect. All right. Now, where is my piece? Okay. This is going to be where my sentiment goes. Misty out. My dirty, dirty Misty. Let's put you in here. Like so. Stop it. All right, I am going to be using Brave the Waves and Stay the Course. Straight. I think I'm going to wait to stamp that one until I have this one done, because I think I want my S to come a little bit farther over than my stamp's going to let me do it. So let's get that one there. That looks pretty straight. Get back down there. And I am going to be using Versamark ink for this. I like that. I think it works much better on these smaller details, especially since I'm not using my markers. You can't use Versamark and markers because it'll smear all over the place, and you don't want that. All right, so we got Brave the Waves. I'm sure that's going to pick it up. Nice. Wipe this off. Set it aside. Now, we want this to say, Stay the Course. Stop it. I think that's going to look good. I hope so anyway. All right. First mark. Oop. Set that to the side. Okay, back to my card. We're gonna glue that in there. I think that's gonna be really nice. Now these are definitely not colors I use a lot. If you got my Instagram account, I tend to be drawn to really bright and vibrant colors, but it's also difficult to find cards that kind of have a masculine feel to them also. And not everybody likes the bright colors. I know it's hard to believe, but it's true. I'm just going to take my little pokey tool and push that down in there. All right. Now you can see there is a slight definition. It's just a little bit of dimension on the bottom, and it's much bigger on top there. All right, let me get the card base. Should have that out. And we'll get this card finished up. All right. I've got my score pal. And so this paper's cut at 5 1/4 by 8 1/2. I'm going to cut it or score it at 4 1/4. Fold it over. Get it started, and then I'm going to go back in with my bone folder and give it a nice, good, solid crease. Now, one thing I do when I make cards is, you see how much we've got going on this card front? I'm going to put it on this card base, and look at how flimsy this piece of paper is. It's just flimsy. Now, I could use a heavier cardstock, but I put my logo on the back and I run that through my printer, and I can't use heavier cardstock. So my fix to that, and I think it's a nice finish, is I take another piece of cardstock cut to 5 1/4 by 4, and I glue that, center it and glue it on that back side and the inside of the card. And what that does is it just kind of finishes out the inside of your card. It gives you a nice little spot to write your sentiment. Now, if I were putting a sentiment in the inside of this card, which I'm not because this is a note card, I would stamp this piece and then stick it on the inside. Now see, that, while it's not near as thick as the front of the card, it is definitely more, not as flimsy, not more sturdy. I don't know if that even sounds right. All right, let's get the front glued on. Now you could use double-sided adhesive tape. I am a wet glue girl, and that's just because I have had problems with the double-sided adhesive sticking to my cards over a long period of time. So I use liquid glue. The only problem is if you don't get it straight, you're kind of stuck. All right. Okay, and that's my card. I think it's lovely. I hope you do too.
I hope you've been inspired today, or at least learned something new. Please go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more creative ideas. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.